Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Hare Krishna. Today's I must thank you all very much for coming here from all different places, and you gave your precious time to come here and allow me to serve in the mission of Guru and Gauranga. Today is a very auspicious day. Today, actually, Veer Krishna Goswami Maharaj was supposed to come here, but at least my god brothers and god sisters are here, so that's a very welcome thing. And in fact, today's Sunday feast is also being to by Krishna Kushal Prabhu. It's a very auspicious day. So though he's not there, but in his spirits, like Shri Prabhupada, we are able to celebrate his visit in Indies. So today we'll be reading from Caritamrita Adi Lila, 5th chapter, 22nd verse. And those of you who are aware, it is also appearing elsewhere. In Brahma Samhita we do every in the morning. Chintamani Prakar Sadmashu Kalpa Vriksha Lakshavriteshu Surabhir Abhipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Sat Sambram Sevaman Govindam Adipusham Tam Bhajami. So if you just read it like this, it's a bit difficult to understand. But Chintamani Prakar Sadmashu Kalpa Vriksha Lakshavriteshu Surabhir Abhipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Sat Sambram Sevamanam Govindamadi Purusham Tam Aham Bhajami. You please sing in your little voice today.
Chintamani prakaro satma sukalpa vriksha laksa vritesu surabhira vibalayantam Lakshmi sahasra shatasambhrama sevyamanam Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Chintamani, touchstone, prakar, groups made of sadmasu, in abodes, kalpavriksha, of desire trees, laksha, by millions, avriteshu, surrounded, surabhi, surabhi cows, abhipalayantam, tending, Lakshmi, of goddesses of fortune, Sahasra, of thousands, Shata, by hundreds, Sambrama, with great respect, Sevyamanam, being served,
being served.
Govindam,
Govindam,
Govinda,
Govinda,
Adipurusham,
Adipurusham,
the original person.
the original person.
Tam,
Tam,
him.
him.
Aham,
Aham,
I.
I.
Bhajami,
Bhajami,
worship.
worship.
Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada. I worship Govind, the primal Lord, the first progenitor, and who is tending cows, yielding all desires in abodes built with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of purpose trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. So this is a verse from Brahma Samhita, 29th verse. The description of the abode of Krishna gives us definite information of the transcendental place where only is life eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. But there are ample vegetables, milk, jewels, and beautiful homes and gardens tended by lovely damsels who are all goddesses of fortune. Krishna Lok is the topmost planet in the spiritual sky, and below it are innumerable spheres, a description of which can be found in Srimad Bhagavatam. In the beginning of Lord Brahma, self-realization, he was shown a transcendental vision of Vaikuntha spheres by the grace of Narayana. Later, by the grace of Krishna, he was shown a transcendental vision of Krishna Lok. This transcendental vision is like the reception of television from the moon via a mechanical system for receiving modulated waves, but it is achieved by penance and meditation within oneself. Srimad Bhagavatam's second canto states that in Vaikuntha Lok, the material modes of nature, represented by the qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance, have no influence. In the material world, the highest qualitative manifestation is goodness, which is characterized by truthfulness, mental equilibrium, cleanliness, control of the senses, simplicity, essential knowledge, faith in God, scientific knowledge, and so on. Nevertheless, all these qualities are mixed with passion and imperfection. But the qualities of Vaikuntha are a manifestation of God's internal potency, and therefore they are purely spiritual and transcendental, with no trace of material infection. No material planet, even Satyalok, is comparable in quality to the spiritual planets, where the five inherent qualities of the material world, namely ignorance, misery, egoism, anger, and envy, are completely absent. In the material world, everything is a creation. Anything that we think of within our experience, including our own bodies and minds, was created. This process of creation began with the life of Brahma, and the creative principle is prevalent all over the material universe because of the quality of passion. But since the quality of passion is conspicuous by its absence in the Vaikuntha planets, nothing there is created, everything is eternally existent. And because there is no mode of ignorance, there is also no question of annihilation or destruction. In the material world, one may try to make everything permanent by developing the above mentioned qualities of goodness. But because the mode of goodness in the material world is mixed with passion and ignorance, nothing here can exist permanently. Despite all the good plans of the best scientific brains, therefore, in the material world, we have no experience of eternity, bliss, and full of knowledge. But in the spiritual world, because of the complete absence of the qualitative modes, everything is eternal, blissful, and cognizant. Everything we can speak, everything can move, everything can hear, and everything can see in full bliss existence of our eternity. The situation being so, naturally space and time, in the forms of past, present, and future, have no influence there. In the material sky, there is no change because time has no influence. Consequently, the influence of Maya, the total internal and external energy, which induces us to become more and more materialistic and forget our relationship with God, is also absent there. As spiritual sparks of the beams emanating from the transcendental body of the Lord, we are all permanently related with Him and equal to Him in quality. The material energy is a covering of the spiritual spark. But in the absence of that material covering, the living beings in vacuum flow are never forgetful of their identities. They are eternally cognizant of their relationship with God in their constitutional position of rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord. Because they constantly engage in the transcendental service of the Lord, it is natural to conclude that their senses are also transcendental. For one cannot serve the Lord with material senses. The inhabitants of vacuum flow do not possess material senses with which to lord it over material nature. Persons with poor fund of knowledge conclude that a place void of material quantities must be some sort of formless nothingness. In reality, however, there are qualities in the spiritual sky, qualities, because everything there is eternal and pure. The atmosphere there is self-illuminating, and thus there is no need of a sun, a moon, fire, electricity, and so on. One can reach that abode, does not come back to the material world with a material body. There is no difference between atheists and faithful in the vacuum planet, because all who settle there are freed from material qualities. Thus, suras and asuras become equally obedient and loving servitors of the Lord. The residents of Vaikuntha have brilliantly black complexions and much more fascinating and attractive than the dull white and black complexions found in the material world. Their bodies, being spiritual, have no qualities equal in the material world. The beauty of a bright cloud when lightning flashes on it merely hints at their beauty. Generally, the inhabitants of Vaikuntha dress in yellow clothing. Their bodies are delicate and attractively built, and their eyes are like the petals of lotus flowers. Like Lord Vishnu, the residents of Vaikuntha have four hands decorated with a conch shell, wheel, club, and lotus flower. Their chests are beautifully broad and beautifully decorated with necklaces of a brilliant diamond-like metal surrounded by costly jewels, never to be found in the material world. The residents of Vaikuntha are always surrounded, powerful, and effulgent. Some of them have complexions like red coral cat's eyes and lotus flowers, and each of them has earrings of costly jewels. On their heads, they wear flowery crowns resembling guardians. In the Vaikuntras, there are planes, but they make no tumultuous sounds. Material airplanes are not at all safe. They can fall down and crash at any time, for matter is imperfect in every aspect. In the spiritual sky, however, the airplanes are also spiritual, and they are spiritually brilliant and bright. These airplanes do not fly business executives, politicians, or planning commissions or as passengers, nor do they carry cargo or postal bags, for these are all unknown there. These planes are for pleasure trips only, and the residents of Vaikuntha fly in them with their heavenly beautiful fairy-like consorts. Therefore, these airplanes, full of residents of Vaikuntha, both male and female, increase the beauty of the spiritual sky. We cannot imagine how beautiful they are, but their beauty may be compared to the clouds in the sky accompanied by silver branches of electric lightning. The spiritual sky of Vaikuntha is always decorated in this way. The full opulence of the internal potency of Godhead is always resplendent in Vaikuntha, where goddesses of fortune are ever increasingly attached to serving to the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead. These goddesses of fortune, accompanied by their friends, always create a festive atmosphere of transcendental mirth, always singing the glories of the Lord. They are not silent even for a moment. There are unlimited vacuum planets in the spiritual sky, and the ratio of these planets to the material planets in the material sky is 3 to 1. Thus, the poor materialist is busy making political adjustments on a planet that is most insignificant in God's creation. To say nothing of this planet Earth, the whole universe with innumerable planets throughout the galaxies is comparable to a single mustard seed in a bag full of mustard seeds. But the poor materialist makes plans to live comfortably here and thus wastes his valuable human energy in something that is doomed to frustration. Instead of wasting his time with business speculation, he should seek the life of plain living and high spiritual thinking, and thus save himself from perpetual materialistic unrest. Even if a materialist wants to enjoy developed material facilities, he can transfer himself to planets where he can experience material pleasures much more advanced than those available on Earth. The best plan is to prepare oneself to return to the spiritual sky after leaving the body. However, if one is intent on enjoying material facilities, one can transfer himself to other planets in the material sky by utilizing yogic powers. The playful spaceships of the astronauts are but childish entertainments and are of no use for this purpose. The Ashtanga Yoga system is a materialistic art of controlling air by transferring it from the stomach to the navel, from navel to the heart, from heart to the collarbone, and from there to the eyeballs, from there to the cerebellum, and from there to any desired planet. The velocities of air and light are taken into consideration by the material scientist, but he has no information of the velocity of the mind and intelligence. We have some limited experience of the velocity of mind, because in a moment we can transfer our minds to places hundreds of thousands of miles away. Intelligence is even finer. Finer than an intelligence is the soul, which is not matter like mind and intelligence, but in spirit or antimatter. The soul is hundreds of thousands of times finer and more powerful than intelligence. We can thus only imagine the velocity of soul in its traveling from one planet to another. Needless to say, the soul travels by its own strength and not with the help of any kind of material vehicle. The bestial civilization of eating, sleeping, fearing, and sense gratifying has misled modern man into forgetting how powerful a soul he has. As we have already described, the soul is a spiritual spark, many times more illuminating, dazzling, and powerful than the sun, moon, or electricity. Human life is spoiled when man does not realize his real identity with his soul. Lord Chaitanya appeared with Lord Nityananda to save man from this type of misleading civilization. Srimad Bhagavatam also describes how yogis can travel to all the planets in the universe. When the vital force is lifted to the cerebellum, there is every chance that this force will burst out from the eyes, nose, ears, etc., as there are places that are known as the seventh orbit of the vital force. But the yogis can block these holes by complete suspension of air. The yogi then concentrates the vital force in the middle position, that is, between the eyebrows. At this position, the yogi can think of the planet to which he wants to go after leaving the body. He can then decide whether he wants to go to the abode of Krishna in the transcendental Vaikuntras, from which he will not be required to descend into the material world, or to travel to higher planets in the material universe. The perfect yogi is at liberty to do either. For the perfect yogi who has attained success in the method of leaving his body in perfect consciousness, transferring from one planet to another is as easy as an ordinary man walking to the grocery store. As already discussed, the material body is just a covering of the spiritual soul. Mind and intelligence are the undercoverings, and the gross body of earth, water, air, and so is in the process of overcoating of the soul. As such, any advanced soul who has realized himself by the yogic process, who knows the relationship between matter and spirit, can leave the gross dress of soul in perfect order as he desires. By the grace of God, we have complete freedom. Because the Lord is kind to us, we can live anywhere, either in the spiritual sky or in the material sky, upon whichever planet we desire. However, misuse of this freedom causes one to fall down to the material world and suffer the threefold miseries of conditioned life. The living of a miserable life in the material world by dint of soul's choice is nicely illustrated by Milton in Paradise Lost. Similarly, by the choice, the soul can regain paradise and return home back to Godhead. At the critical time of death, one can place a vital force between the eyebrows and decide where he wants to go. If he is reluctant to maintain any connection with the material world, he can, in less than a second, reach the transcendental abode of Vaikuntha and appear there completely in his spiritual body, which will be suitable for him in the spiritual atmosphere. He has simply to desire to leave the material world, both in finer and grosser forms, and then move the vital force to the topmost part of the skull and leave the body from hole in the skull called the Brahmarandra. This is easy for one perfect in the practice of yoga. Of course, man is endowed with free will, and as such, he does not want to free himself from the material world. He may enjoy the life of Brahmapada, the occupation of the post of Brahma, visit Siddhalok, the planets of the materially imperfect beings who have full capacity to control gravity, space, and time. To visit these higher planets in the material universe, one need not give up his mind and intelligence, finer matter, but need only give up grosser matter, the material body. Each and every planet has its particular atmosphere, and if one wants to travel to any particular planet within the material universe, one has to adapt his material body to the climatic conditions of that planet. For instance, if one wants to go to from India to Europe, where climatic condition is different, one must has to change his dress accordingly. Similarly, a complete change of body is necessary if one wants to go to the transcendental planet of Vaikuntha. However, if one wants to go to the higher material planets, he can keep his final dress of mind, intelligence, and ego, but has to leave his gross dress, body made of earth, water, fire, etc. When one goes to a transcendental planet, it is necessary to change both the finer and gross bodies, for one has to reach the spiritual sky completely in a spiritual form. This change of dress will take place automatically at the time of death if one so desires. The Bhagavad Gita confirms that one will attain his next material body according to his desire at the time he leaves his body. The desire of mind carries the soul to a suitable atmosphere as the wind carries aromas from one place to another. Unfortunately, those who are not yogis but gross materialists, who throughout their lives indulge in sense gratification, are puzzled by the disarrangement of the bodily and mental condition at the time of death. Such gross sensualists, encumbered by the main ideas, desires, and associations of the lives they have led, desire something against their interests and thus foolishly take on new bodies that perpetuate their material miseries. Systematic training of mind and intelligence is therefore needed so that at the time of death one may consciously desire a suitable body either on this planet or other material planet or even a transcendental planet. A civilization that does not consider the progressive advancement of the immortal soul merely fosters a bestial life of ignorance. It is foolish to think that every soul that passes away goes to the same place. Either the soul goes to a place he desires at the time of death, or upon leaving his body he is forced to accept a position according to his acts in his previous life. The difference between the materialist and the yogi is that a materialist cannot determine his next body, whereas a yogi can consciously attain a suitable body for enjoyment in the higher planets. Throughout his life, the gross materialist, who is constantly after sense gratification, spends all day earning his livelihood to maintain his family, and at night he wastes his energy in sex enjoyment, or else goes to sleep thinking about all he has done in the daytime. That is the monotonous life of the materialist. Although differently graded as businessmen, lawyers, politicians, professors, judges, coolies, pickpockets, laborers, and so on, materialists all simply engage in sleeping, eating, fearing, and sense gratification, and thus spoil their valuable lives, pursuing luxury and neglecting to perfect their lives through spiritual realization. Yogis, however, try to perfect their lives, and therefore the Bhagavad Gita enjoins that everyone should become a yogi. Yoga is the system for linking the soul in the service of the Lord. Only under superior guidance can one practice such yoga in his life without changing his social position. As already described, a yogi can go anywhere he desires without mechanical help. For a yogi can place his mind and intelligence within the air circulating inside his body, and by practicing the art of breath control, he can mix that air with the air that blows all over the universe outside his body. With the help of this universal air, a yogi can travel to any planet and get a body suitable for its atmosphere. We can understand this process by comparing it to the electronic transmission of radio messages. With radio transmitters, this process by comparing it to electronic transmission of radio messages. With radio transmitters, sound waves produced at a certain station can travel all over the earth in seconds. But sound is produced from ethereal sky, and as already explained, subtler than the ethereal sky is the mind, and finer than mind is the intelligence. The spirit is still finer than intelligence, and by nature it is completely different from matter. Thus, we can imagine how quickly the spirit soul can travel throughout the universal atmosphere. To come to the stage of manipulating finer elements like mind, intelligence, and spirit, one needs to appropriate training, an appropriate mode of life, and appropriate association. Such training depends upon sincere prayers, devotional service, and achievement of success in mystic perfection, and the successful merging of oneself in the activities of soul and the super soul. A gross materialist, whether he is an empirical philosopher, a scientist, a psychologist, or whatever, cannot attain success through blunt efforts and word jugglery. Materialists who perform yajnas or great sacrifices are comparatively better than grosser materialists who do not know anything beyond laboratories and test tubes. The advanced materialists who perform such sacrifices can reach the planets called Vaishnava, a fiery planet similar to the sun. On this planet, which is situated on the way to Brahmloka, the topmost planet in the universe, such an advanced materialist can free himself from all traces of vices and its effect. When such a materialist is purified, he can rise to the pole star or Dhrulo. Within this orbit, which is called Shishumar Chakra, are situated the Aditya Lokas and the Vaikuntha planet within this universe. A purified materialist who has performed many sacrifices, undergone severe penances, and given the major portion of his wealth in charity can reach such planets as Dhrulo, and if he becomes still more qualified there, he can penetrate still higher orbit and pass through the navel of the universe to reach the planet Maharlok, where sages like Bhrigu Muni live. In Maharlok, one can live even to the time of the partial annihilation of the universe. This annihilation begins when Anant Dev, from the lowest position in the universe, produces a blazing fire. The heat of this fire reaches even the Maharlok, and the residents of Maharlok travel to Brahmalok, which exists for twice the duration of Paradhra time. In Brahmalok, there is unlimited time of airplanes, number of airplanes that are controlled by not by yantra, machine, but by mantra, psychic action. Because of the existence of mind and intelligence on Brahmalok, its residents have feeling of happiness and distress. But there is no cause of lamentation from old age, death, fear, or disease, distress. They feel sympathy, however, for the suffering living beings who are consumed in the fire of annihilation. The residents of Brahmalok do not have gross bodies to change at death, but they transform their subtle bodies into spiritual bodies and thus enter the spiritual sky. The residents of Brahmalok can attain perfection in three different ways. Virtuous persons who reach Brahmalok by dint of their pious work become masters of various planets after the resurrection of Brahma. Those who have worshipped Garbhodakshaya Vishnu are liberated to Brahma, and those who are pure devotees of the personality of Godhead at once push the covering of the universe and enter the spiritual sky. The numberless universes exist together in foam-like clusters, and so only some of them are surrounded by the water of causal ocean. When agitated by the glance of Karnal Dakshai Vishnu, material nature produces the total elements, which are eight in number, and which gradually evolve into finer to gross. A part of the ego is the sky, a part of which is air, a part of which is fire, a part of which is water, a part of which is earth. Thus, one universe inflates to an area of 4 billion miles in diameter. A yogi who desires gradual liberation must penetrate all the different coverings of the universe. including the subtle coverings of the three qualitative modes of material nature. One who does this never has to return to this mortal world. According to Shukdev Goswami, the above description of the material and spiritual skies is neither imaginary nor utopian. The actual facts are recorded in the Vedic hymns, and Lord Vasudeva disclosed them to Lord Brahma. And when Lord Brahma satisfied him, one can achieve the perfection of life only when he has definite idea of Vaikuntha and the Supreme Godhead. One should always think about and describe the person of Godhead, for this is recommended in both the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavad Puran, which are two authorized commentaries upon the Vedas. Lord Chaitanya has made all this subject matter easier for the fallen souls of this age to accept, and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita has therefore presented them for the easy understanding of all concerned. So it is a quite long purport, but the 5 points which I could pick from this was this, like in Vacuum flow, the material modes of nature represented by the qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance have no influence, but the qualities in Vacuum are a manifestation of God's internal potency, and therefore they are purely spiritual and transcendental with no trace of material infection. The material energy is a covering of spiritual spark, but in the absence of that material covering, the living beings in Vaikuntha are never forgetful of their identities. They are eternally cognizant of their relationship with the God in their constitutional position of rendering transcendental service to the Lord. There is no difference between atheists and faithful in Vaikuntha planets because all who settle there are freed from material qualities. Thus, Suras and Asuras become equally obedient and loving servitors of the Lord. At the critical time of death, one can place the vital force between the eyebrows and decide whether he wants to go. If he is reluctant to maintain any connection with the material world, he can in less than a second reach the transcendental abode of Vaikuntha and appear there completely in his spiritual body, which will be suitable for him in the spiritual atmosphere. He has simply to desire to leave the material world, both in finer and grosser form, and then move to vital form to the topmost part of the skull, and leave the body from the whole of the skull called Brahman. It is easy for one perfect in the practice of yoga. And finally, one can achieve the perfection of life only when he has a definite idea of Vaikuntha and Supreme Godhead. One should always think about and describe Supreme Personality of Godhead, for this is recommended both in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavad Puran, which are two authorized commentaries on the Vedas. Lord Chaitanya has made all these matters easier for fallen souls in this age to accept, and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and therefore presented them for easy understanding for all concerned. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Any questions or any comments?
I think it's explained so well that what it's so perfectly described. But,
The beauty of this particular verse, basically, when we do something over a period of time, it becomes our habit, and when we are doing something, we stop thinking about it. So this is one of the verses in Brahma Samhita which we do in the morning every day in the temple. But when I was reading the minute I read that the Govinda Madhikram Aham Bhajam, I realized that okay, it's from Brahma Samhita. Because I was reading the verse, I was not looking at the numbers. And suddenly I realized that okay, so this is the verse we do in the temple. And like a parrot, even I would just parrot it out in the temple. But when I actually started reading this, then I understood like one single verse goes so much. And these are all the prayers by Lord Brahma himself, which is the highest living entity in this material world. So what sort of prayers we are talking about? And other thing which I realized that everybody has to do yoga. Sometimes you feel that oh, why people are wasting time on yoga, but it is mentioned that if you are doing this even something mundane as yoga, but if you are perfecting that also, then you get an option to go back to Godhead. Otherwise, of course, the safer route is devotion because if you are doing yoga, even I was doing for quite some time, but over a period of time, physical limitations come. But if and if you leave that incomplete, then perfection becomes difficult. But in Bhakti Yoga, as Arjun was asking, that if we leave halfway, what happens? Then in next life it starts where it ended. So that would be safer option. But still, if that is difficult, at least yoga one everybody must do. Because we've seen that a person who's disciplined definitely achieves better success than the person who's indisciplined. Rishi, thank you. Yeah, yes, Prabhu. I'm sorry.
Please excuse me for being very specific, but this is certainly the first verse of the Govinda prayers from Brahma-samhita, but
Yeah.
we are not reciting this every morning. We are only reciting Venum Kvanantam Aravinda Dalayak Taksam and Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti. These two verses, but not
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks for pointing it out. But as I was pointing it out, that these are prayers sung by Lord Brahma himself. And if one verse could give so much of knowledge, so if we started, if nothing else, if we just start to understand even the prayers which we are doing in the mornings, our life would be far better off than where we are, at least where I am. That was my understanding.
Yeah, very fundamental verse, nevertheless.
Yeah, because I'm also reading that in Bhagavad Gita, if you read and actually follow even one single verse of Bhagavad Gita, life becomes perfect even with that. And we are talking about something so complex, but the thing is that even little progress in spiritual life is definitely much more better than material advancement. That was my understanding. So the more we read, it's like, as you rightly pointed out, that even if I learn all the verses, I understand everything in perfect. But the thing is that the more I go into it, I realize it's ever fresh and it's still mysterious to me all the time. Every time I read, I feel that okay, I'm reading for the first time, and every time I read, I understand something totally different coming out of it. Or to put it simply, the more I go into it, the more I realize how ignorant I am. So that's how I could share. But thank you very much for sharing your time. And also, thank you. Great.
Hare Krishna.